The grand hall floated in space above a dying star. Inside, creatures from 800 different worlds sat in circles of light. Some had wings, some had tentacles, and some looked like walking rocks. This was the Galactic Council, and they were about to make a terrible mistake. Daeho Kim stood in the center of the hall. He was a human from Earth wearing a simple black suit. His hair was gray at the temples and his face showed no emotion. Next to him stood Sora Lee, a younger woman with sharp eyes that noticed everything. They were the only humans in a room full of aliens who thought they were gods. High Counselor Vexthara rose from his throne. He looked like a giant mantis with green armor covering his body and eyes that glowed red. He had lived for 3,000 years and ruled the council for most of that time. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. Humans of Earth, Vexthara's voice boomed through the chamber. You have traveled to the stars. You have touched the fabric of faster-than-light travel. But you are young. You are children playing with tools you do not understand. Daeho said nothing. He simply waited. Sora had learned to read his silences. This one meant he was listening carefully, memorizing every word. The council has existed for 40,000 years, Vexthara continued. We have guided countless species through their difficult early years. Now we will guide you. We hereby declare humanity a protected subordinate species. The words sounded nice. Protected, guided. But Sora knew what they really meant. She had spent 3 months studying council history. Protected meant controlled. Subordinate meant slaves. A hologram appeared in the air, showing the terms. Earth would give 40% of everything it produced to the council. Humans would share all their technology. They would have no vote in council decisions. They would mine dangerous asteroids. They would work in toxic environments that other species avoided. And they would do this forever, or until the council decided they had earned the right to be treated as equals. That could take 10,000 years. Or never. Do you accept the wisdom of the council? Vexthara asked. Daeho bowed low. The people of Earth are honored by your guidance. We accept. A wave of satisfaction rippled through the chamber. The aliens whispered to each other in hundreds of languages. Another primitive species had been put in its place. Another source of cheap labor had been secured. Another threat had been neutralized before it could grow dangerous. Only a few noticed the small smile on Daeho's face. Sora noticed. She had seen that smile before during the war on Earth. It was the smile Daeho wore when he had trapped an enemy who thought they were winning. Brumvik, the council treasurer, floated forward. He looked like a boulder with crystals growing out of it. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. Your first tribute payment is due in 30 days. You will also provide us with your quantum computing research, and you will send 10,000 workers to the mining colonies. Of course, Daeho said calmly. We wish to be good subjects. In fact, we have a request. This surprised the council. Subordinate species usually begged and pleaded. They asked for mercy, for better terms, for more time. They did not make calm requests. Speak, Vexthara said. We wish to access the council's legal archives. All of them. We want to study council law so we can better understand our duties. Several council members laughed. What could primitives do with 40,000 years of legal documents? Nothing. They would drown in paperwork they could not understand. Granted, Vexthara said, waving a claw dismissively. Study all you wish. It will not change your place. Thank you, Daeho bowed again. One more small thing. Will you assign someone to oversee our compliance? We want to make sure we follow all rules correctly. Vexthara gestured to a massive creature covered in scars. Enforcer General Thax will monitor your species. He has broken rebellious species before. Do not disappoint him, Thax stepped forward. He was 3 meters tall, with forearms and armor that looked like it had survived 1,000 battles. His species were warriors, bred for combat and trained to crush resistance. He looked at the 2 humans like they were insects. I will be watching, Thax growled. We look forward to your guidance, Daeho said pleasantly. The ceremony ended. The council members returned to their private chambers to celebrate. Another successful subordination. Another species that would fuel the council's wealth and power for millennia. As Daeho and Sora walked back to their small ship, Sora finally spoke. That was too easy. Yes, Daeho agreed, they didn't even negotiate. They just declared us subordinates and expected us to accept. Arrogance, Daeho said. They have ruled for so long they have forgotten how to see threats. Sora looked back at the massive council station. Do you really think we can do this? They have weapons that can destroy stars. They have technology we can't even understand. They have 40,000 years of experience. Deho smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. They have 40,000 years of habits. 40,000 years of corruption. 40,000 years of thinking no one will ever challenge them. And most importantly, they just made us subjects instead of enemies. What's the difference? Enemies they would destroy. Subjects have rights, protections, legal standing. They can file complaints, request clarifications, demand tribunals. They gave us access to their laws. They gave us an overseer we can appeal to. They gave us everything we need to tear their system apart from the inside. Sora began to understand. You planned this. From the moment we achieved faster-than-light travel, we knew we would encounter them. We studied their history. We analyzed their structure. We found the cracks. Now we just need to apply pressure in the right places. They reached their ship. It was small and looked poorly maintained, exactly what the Council expected from a primitive species. Inside, however, it contained some of the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. As the ship pulled away from the Council station, Daiho activated the secure communications. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2 immediately. On Earth, 10,000 lawyers, programmers, and historians received the message. They had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Now the real work would begin. The Council's legal archives began downloading to Earth's quantum computers. 40,000 years of laws, treaties, decisions, and precedents. 40,000 years of contradictions, loopholes, and forgotten clauses. Sora looked at the data streaming in. How long will it take to analyze all this? 3 months, Deho said. Maybe less. Our AI systems are very good at finding patterns. And then, Deho looked at the Council station shrinking behind them. Then we show them that the most dangerous thing they could have done was give humans time to think. They wanted obedient subjects. They are going to get something very different. Back on the Council station, Vexithara met with his inner circle. They drank liquid that glowed and talked about how they would spend humanity's tribute. None of them noticed the subtle changes in their computer systems. None of them realized that human quantum code was already spreading through their networks, hidden in the legal documents they had so carelessly shared. Thax, however, felt uneasy. He had fought in 100 wars. He knew the look of a defeated enemy, and he knew the look of an enemy who was planning something. The humans had the second look. But when he reported this to Vexithara, the High Counselor laughed. They are primitives who discovered faster-than-light travel 3 years ago. We have been traveling the stars for 40,000 years. What could they possibly do to us? Thax said nothing more. But he increased his monitoring of human activities. He would watch them carefully. And in time, he would realize that Vexithara had asked exactly the wrong question. The question was not what could the humans do. The question was what had they already done. And by the time the Council figured that out, it would be far too late. 3 months passed. On Earth, something strange was happening. Humans were being perfect subjects. Every tribute payment arrived exactly on time. The quantum computing research was shared completely and openly. 10,000 human workers went to the mining colonies without complaint. When the Council asked for more, humans said yes with smiles on their faces. This made Thax nervous. He had crushed 12 rebellious species in his career. He knew what rebellion looked like. This was not rebellion. This was something else. He stood in his office aboard the Council station reviewing reports from Earth. Everything seemed normal. Too normal. He decided to call Vexithara. The humans are being suspiciously obedient, Thax said. Vexithara's image appeared on the screen. He looked annoyed at being disturbed. That is what we wanted. They are learning their place. No species accepts subordination this easily. There should be protests, complaints, resistance movements. There is nothing. Then they are smarter than most, Vexithara said. Stop worrying. Enjoy the tribute payments. The humans are making us very wealthy. The call ended. Thax was not satisfied, but he had no evidence of wrongdoing. All he had was a feeling, and feelings did not justify action. What Thax did not know was that beneath Earth's oceans, inside mountains, and in secret bases on Mars, humanity was preparing for war. Not a war with weapons, but a war with words, laws, and information. Director Minho Park ran the operation from a bunker beneath Seoul. He was 50 years old, with gray hair and eyes that never stopped moving. Before the Council arrived, He had been a corporate lawyer who specialized in finding loopholes in impossible contracts. Now he led 10,000 people doing the same thing to 40,000 years of galactic law. "Status report," he said to his team. A young woman named Jiwan Han looked up from her computer. She was a specialist in artificial intelligence. "The AI has processed 98% of the Council's legal archives. We have found 73,000 contradictions, 12,000 loopholes, and 47,000 cases of laws that were never repealed, but conflict with current regulations." Minho smiled. "And the big one? The trial of merit?" Jiwan pulled up a document on the screen. Found it buried in the original council charter from 40,000 years ago. "Any subordinate species can challenge their classification through a series of tests. If they pass, they gain full council membership immediately. Why has no one used this? Because the tests are designed to be impossible for any species that achieved faster than light travel in less than 10,000 years. The last species to attempt it was 12,000 years ago. They failed the second test and were demoted to slave status as punishment. Can we pass the tests?" Jiwan hesitated. "Maybe. The tests are not just about technology. They are about creativity, adaptability, and thinking in ways that ancient species have forgotten how to do." Minho nodded. "Those are human strengths. What else do we have?" Another team member spoke up. His name was Hyun Lee, and he was an engineer. "The quantum computing technology we gave them, it has backdoors. We can access their entire network whenever we want. They don't know this because their own technology is so old they can't detect the kind of coding we use." "Good. What about Captain Yuna?" "Her fleet is in position," Hyun said. Captain Yuna Choi commanded what the council thought was a fleet of mining ships. They were mining ships, but they were also warships disguised as civilian vessels. More importantly, they had spent 3 months mapping every council military installation, communications relay, and supply depot within 50 light years. Yuna sat in the command chair of her ship, the Morning Star. Around her, screens showed the locations of council defenses. There were so many. The council had weapons that could destroy planets. They had shields that could stop any known attack, but Yuna had been a military strategist before she became a captain. She knew that the strongest fortress always had a weakness. You just had to find it. "All ships report ready," her second-in-command said. "Good. Continue scanning. Look for patterns in their patrols, gaps in their coverage, anything we can use. If it comes to a fight, we can't win." Yuna smiled. "That's why we won't fight. We will just make sure they can't fight us." Back on Earth, Sora Lee was meeting with representatives from other subordinate species. The meeting was secret, held in a shielded room that blocked all council surveillance. 12 aliens sat around the table. They looked nervous. Speaking against the council was dangerous. Being caught at this meeting could mean death for their entire species. "Thank you for coming," Sora said. "We know the risk you are taking." An alien that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke first. "You are new to the council. You do not understand. We have tried to resist before. We have tried to fight. We always lose. The council is too powerful. You fought with weapons," Sora said. "We are going to fight with their own laws." Another alien, this one covered in blue fur, shook its head. "Laws? The council makes the laws? They can change them whenever they want. Not without consequences," Sora explained. "The council is not just a government. It is a marketplace, a network of alliances, and a system built on rules. If they break their own rules too obviously, the system collapses. Other senior species will lose faith. Trade will stop. Everything will fall apart. So they are trapped by their own success," the jellyfish said slowly. "Exactly. They have built a machine too big to change quickly, and we are going to use that against them." The blue-furred alien leaned forward. "What do you need from us?" "Just watch. When we make our move, we need you to support us publicly. The council cannot suppress all of us at once, and if you fail," Sora met the alien's eyes, "then you were never here. We will take the blame for everything." The aliens looked at each other. Finally, one by one, they agreed. It was a small thing, just a promise to speak up when the time came. But small things could change history. Meanwhile, the council was beginning to notice strange things. Human workers were filing thousands of requests for legal clarification. They wanted to know exactly what their duties were, down to the smallest detail. They asked about contradictions in the law. They pointed out cases where 2 different regulations said opposite things. Each request was perfectly polite. Each one was technically legal, but there were so many that the council's bureaucrats were drowning in paperwork. Bromvik, the treasurer, called a meeting. "The humans are clogging our legal system. We need to do something. What can we do?" another counselor asked. "They have the right to request clarifications. It is in the law. Then we change the law. That requires a full council vote. It will take months." Bromvik cursed in his grinding stone voice. The humans had found a way to annoy the council without breaking any rules. It was brilliant and infuriating at the same time. Then came the day that changed everything. Ambassador Deho requested a private meeting with Vexthara. The High Counselor granted it, curious about what the human wanted. They met in Vexthara's personal chamber, a room decorated with treasures from 100 conquered worlds. Deho entered calmly, bowed respectfully, and smiled. "I have been studying council law as you permitted," Deho said. "I found something interesting." "Oh?" Vexthara was only half paying. "Attention, there is an ancient provision called the Trial of Merit. It allows subordinate species to prove they deserve full membership." Now Vexthara was paying full attention. That law has not been invoked in 12,000 years, but it still exists. And I am invoking it now. Humanity formally challenges our subordinate classification. For the first time in 1,000 years, Vexthara felt surprise. Then he began to laugh. It was a terrible sound, like metal scraping metal. "You will fail," Vexthara said. "The trials are impossible for primitives. The last species who tried was punished severely." Deho's smile never wavered. "Then you have nothing to fear from letting us try." Vexthara realized the trap. If he refused, he would be breaking an ancient law. Other senior species would question his authority. If he accepted, the humans would fail publicly, and their humiliation would serve as a warning to all subordinate species. It was a perfect strategy. Either way, Vexthara thought he would win. "Very well," Vexthara said. "The council will convene tomorrow to formally accept your challenge. Prepare yourself for failure, human." Deho bowed and left. As soon as he was gone, he contacted Earth with a coded message. Just 2 words, it begins. Across human space, teams moved into action. Lawyers prepared arguments. Engineers checked their back doors into council systems. Captain Yuna positioned her fleet for maximum effect. Jiwan activated her AI systems, and Sora sent messages to 247 subordinate species. Watch what happens next. Your future depends on it. The council thought they were about to watch humans fail. They had no idea they were about to watch their entire system collapse. The trial arena existed in a pocket dimension, a place created by ancient technology that no one fully understood anymore. It was a vast white space where reality could be shaped and reshaped to create any test imaginable. 800 council members gathered to watch. They sat in floating chairs arranged in a massive circle around the arena floor. Most of them were excited to see humans humiliated. A few were curious, and a tiny number hoped secretly that maybe the humans would succeed. In the center of the arena stood the adjudicators. They were artificial intelligences from the earliest days of the council, built to be absolutely fair and incorruptible. They looked like floating spheres of golden light. "Humanity has invoked the trial of merit," the lead adjudicator announced. Its voice was calm and without emotion. 7 trials will test their worthiness. They must pass all 7. Failure in any trial means permanent subordinate status with no possibility of appeal. Vexthara leaned forward in his chair, eager to watch the humans fail. Begin the first trial. The white space transformed. Suddenly, Hyunli stood alone in a room filled with equations. They floated in the air, written in symbols from hundreds of different mathematical systems. The test was simple but brutal. Solve a problem that required understanding 12-dimensional space. Most species took decades to develop this kind of mathematics. Humans had only been working with it for 15 years. The council expected Hyun to fail within minutes. Hyun looked at the equations calmly. Then he closed his eyes and began to think. On Earth, he had designed video game physics engines. He had worked with virtual reality systems that simulated impossible spaces. He had learned to think about dimensions that did not exist in normal reality. He opened his eyes and began to write. His hands moved through the air, adding symbols, connecting ideas, building a solution. He used techniques from human string theory, combined with patterns he had learned from gaming algorithms, mixed with pure mathematical intuition. 6 hours later, He wrote the final equation. The answer appeared in the air, glowing. The adjudicator was silent for a moment. Then, the solution is correct. Trial 1 passed. Shock rippled through the council chamber. Several members stood up in disbelief. This was not supposed to happen. Lucky guess, Vexathara said quickly. The next trial will expose their inadequacy. The second trial began. The arena transformed into a battlefield in space. Captain Yuna Choi stood on the bridge of a simulated warship. Facing her was an AI fleet commander that had fought in 8,000 battles and never lost. The AI attacked with perfect precision, using formations developed over millennia of warfare. Its ships moved like a dance, each one supporting the others, creating an unbreakable wall of firepower. Yuna watched carefully. She saw the patterns. The AI was brilliant, but it was predictable. It followed rules. It had forgotten how to be creative because it had never needed to be. She smiled and gave her first order. All ships retreat at maximum speed. Make it look panicked. Her fleet scattered. The AI pursued, confident of victory. This was how every battle ended. The inferior force ran and the superior force destroyed them, but Yuna was not running. She was leading the AI into a trap. She had scattered her ships in a pattern that looked random, but was carefully planned, and she had filled space with small drones that looked like debris. When the AI fleet was in the perfect position, Yuna gave her second order: activate psychological warfare protocols. Every human ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. Not threats, not challenges, just sounds, laughter, music, human voices talking about Earth, about home, about why they fought, about hope. The AI did not understand. It tried to filter out the noise, but the sounds were designed to overload its analysis systems. While it was distracted, the small drones activated. They were not weapons. They were jammers that disrupted the AI's coordination. Suddenly, the perfect AI fleet was just a collection of ships that could not talk to each other. Yuna's forces struck hard and fast, targeting command ships, breaking formations, creating chaos. The AI tried to adapt, but it was too late. Yuna had already won. She did not destroy the enemy fleet. That would be wasteful. Instead, she forced them to surrender by making it impossible for them to fight effectively. Trial 2 passed, the adjudicator announced. The victory is unconventional but valid. Now the council members were worried. 2 trials passed. That had not happened in recorded history. Vexthara was no longer laughing. The third trial began. A woman named Nari Song appeared in a room with 3 aliens. They were representatives of 3 species that had been at war for 5,000 years. Her task was to make peace between them. Nari had studied the history of their conflict. She knew it was complicated, with ancient grudges and legitimate grievances on all sides. She also knew something the council hoped she would not discover. Before we begin, Nari said, I have a question. Who benefits from your war? The 3 aliens looked confused. What do you mean? Your war has lasted 5,000 years. That requires weapons, supplies, and constant resources. Who do you buy those from? The council's military contractors, one of them said. Exactly. And who profits when you stay at war? The aliens began to understand. Nari pulled up data she had found in the council archives. It showed how council members owned the companies that sold weapons to all 3 sides. It showed how peace negotiations had been secretly sabotaged. It showed how the entire war had been manipulated to generate profit. You are not enemies, Nari said. You are victims of the same crime. The question is not how to make peace with each other. The question is how to stop the ones who profit from your suffering. The 3 species representatives looked at each other. Slowly, understanding replaced hatred. They had been fighting each other while the real enemy grew rich on their blood. They declared peace immediately. Not just a ceasefire, but a full alliance. Together, they would demand justice from the council. Trial 3 passed, the adjudicator said. Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Nari had not just made peace. She had exposed a massive scandal. Several council members tried to leave but found the exit sealed. The adjudicators would not let them escape. Vexathara stood up, furious. This is manipulation. The human cheated. The trial was to create peace, the adjudicator replied. Peace exists. The method is unimportant. Trial 4 will now begin. Professor Jiwon Han appeared in a laboratory. Her trial was to create a device that had never existed before. Something truly new and valuable to the galaxy. She had prepared for this. For 3 months, she had been working on a project that combined human AI technology with an understanding of how different species thought and communicated. She assembled the device quickly. It looked simple, just a small box with a glowing crystal at its center. But when she activated it, something amazing happened. The device began speaking in hundreds of languages simultaneously, not just the languages of Council species, but also languages of species the Council had dismissed as primitive, species that communicated through color changes, chemical signals, vibration patterns, and even quantum states. This is a universal translator, Jiwan explained, but not like the ones you already have. This one works for all forms of communication, even from species you thought could not communicate at all. She demonstrated by connecting to a species that communicated through changes in their bioluminescence. The Council had classified them as animals, but with the translator they began to speak. They had poetry, philosophy, and stories. They were not animals. They were people who had been ignored. Thousands of species across the galaxy suddenly gained a voice. Species that had been classified as primitive were revealed to be sophisticated civilizations. Trial 4 passed, the adjudicator said. The device is revolutionary. The Council chamber was in complete uproar now. 4 trials passed. This was unprecedented, impossible, terrifying. Bromvik, the treasurer, tried to call for a recess. The adjudicators refused. The trials would continue until completion. That was the law. 3 more trials followed. Each one tested different aspects of human capability. Mathematics, engineering, cultural understanding, creative problem-solving. Each one was designed to be impossible, and humans passed them all. They did not pass through superior technology or ancient knowledge. They passed through creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to think differently. They passed because they were new enough to the galaxy that they had not learned the old ways of thinking. When the 7th trial ended, silence filled the chamber. The adjudicators conferred briefly, then made their announcement. All 7 trials passed. According to the laws established at the founding of this council, humanity is hereby granted full membership status with all rights and privileges. This judgment is final and cannot be appealed. The humans had won. Against impossible odds, they had done what no species had done in 12,000 years. But Vexithara was not finished. He stood up, his body shaking with rage, and made a declaration that would change everything. I invoke Emergency Protocol 7, he said. There has been a procedural error. The trials are invalid. I am suspending the judgment until a full investigation can be completed. The adjudicators turned their golden light toward him. Their voices were cold and hard. Emergency Protocol 7 was repealed 8,000 years ago. The data appeared everywhere at once. On every screen, every display, every communication device in Council space. It could not be stopped, could not be deleted, could not be hidden. The quantum backdoors that humans had installed 3 months ago ensured that. Director Minho Park sat in his bunker on Earth, watching as 40,000 years of Council secrets became public knowledge. His team had worked for 3 months to organize this information, to make it clear and undeniable. The first file showed evidence of sabotage. 34 species had been deliberately prevented from advancing. The Council had destroyed their research facilities, assassinated their scientists, and stolen their best ideas, all to keep them weak and controllable. The second file revealed financial crimes. 940 trillion credits had been stolen from subordinate species over the centuries. The money had been used to enrich Council members, to build private empires, and to fund secret projects that violated every ethical guideline the Council claimed to follow. The third file documented weapons testing. Dozens of subordinate worlds had been used as testing grounds for illegal weapons. Millions had died. The Council had covered it up as natural disasters or tribal conflicts. The fourth file listed assassinations. 217 species representatives who had questioned Council authority had died in convenient accidents. Ship malfunctions, poisonings, mysterious illnesses, all traceable back to Council operatives. And there was more. Much more. 40,000 years of corruption, exploitation, and crime. In the Council chamber, Vexithara watched his world collapse. He tried to access the communication systems to shut down the broadcast. They would not respond. He tried to call his security forces. The quantum jammers that Captain Yuna had placed blocked all military communications. He was trapped, powerless, forced to watch as the truth destroyed everything he had built. "This is illegal," he shouted. "This is an act of war." Deho looked at him calmly. "No, this is transparency. Everything we are showing comes from your own archives. Your own records. These are your crimes, not ours. We are simply ensuring everyone can see them." Across the galaxy, reactions came swiftly. Subordinate species representatives began demanding emergency council sessions. On station after station, protests erupted. Not violent rebellions, but peaceful demonstrations. Billions of beings simply standing still, holding signs that said, "We know the truth." The council's military tried to respond, but Captain Yuna had prepared for that. Her mining ships were not really mining ships at all. They were mobile jamming platforms, each one capable of disrupting communications across entire star systems. Admiral Kren, commander of the council's main fleet, stared at his screens in confusion. His ships could not receive orders. They could not coordinate. They could not even talk to each other. They were the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and they had been neutralized without a single shot being fired. Kren was not stupid. He understood what had happened. The humans had infiltrated every system. They had taken control without anyone noticing. And now they held all the power. He made a decision. He sent a single message on an old, forgotten frequency that the humans had not blocked. The message went to Enforcer General Thax. "The Council is corrupt beyond redemption. I will not fight for them anymore. What are your orders?" Thax read the message in his quarters. For a long time, he did not respond. He had served the Council for 400 years. He had crushed rebellions, enforced laws, and maintained order. But he had also seen the corruption. He had documented the crimes. He had waited for someone brave enough to challenge the system, now that someone had arrived. And they were human. He sent his reply, "Stand down. Do not engage human forces. Wait for further instructions." Then he walked to the council chamber. He entered without asking permission and strode directly to where Vexithera stood. "Enforcer General," Vexithera said eagerly. "Finally, arrest these humans. Execute them for treason." Thax looked at the High Counselor. Then he did something he had never done in 4 centuries of service. He removed his badge of office and dropped it on the floor. "No," Thax said simply. "What?" "I have been documenting your crimes for 200 years. Waiting for evidence strong enough to act on, waiting for someone brave enough to stand against you. The humans have provided both. I will not arrest them. I will arrest you." Vexithera stepped backward. "You cannot do this. I am the High Counselor. You were the High Counselor. Now you are a criminal waiting for trial." But Vexithera was not finished. He had one final weapon, something secret, something ancient, something that could destroy everyone who opposed him. He activated a hidden device in his chair. Alarms blared throughout the station. The adjudicator's golden lights turned red. "Warning," they announced. "Ancient defensive system activated. Station will be destroyed in 60 seconds. All life in a 10-light-year radius will be eliminated." This system was designed as a final defense against invasion. It cannot be stopped once activated. Panic. Pure, absolute panic. Council members fled toward the exits. Species representatives tried to reach their ships. Everyone understood what was about to happen. Vexithera had decided that if he could not rule, no one would. Deho and Sora did not run. They stood calmly watching the countdown. 50 seconds. 45 seconds. Vexithera laughed maniacally. "You cannot stop it, primitives. Even your technology cannot hack this system. It was built before the Council existed by a species so advanced they could manipulate space itself." 30 seconds, Sora looked at Deho. "Can Jiwan do it?" "She has to," Deho replied. 20 seconds. On Earth, Professor Jiwan Han worked faster than she had ever worked in her life. Her fingers flew across holographic keyboards. Her AI systems analyzed the ancient weapon system, searching for vulnerabilities, looking for any way to interfere. 15 seconds. The system was old, incredibly old, built by a species that had gone extinct millions of years ago. But age meant it used older technology, simpler technology. Technology that humans who had learned to work with primitive systems because their own civilization was young could understand. 10 seconds. Jiwan found it. A single point of connection to the quantum network. She could not stop the weapon. Vexithera was right about that, but she could do something else. She sent the command. Redirect target coordinates. 5 seconds. The weapon's targeting system changed. Instead of destroying the council station, it locked onto a different location, a secret weapons cache hidden in deep space where the council stored its most dangerous illegal weapons. 0. Light filled the chamber, but not the light of destruction. It was the light of the weapon firing toward its new target. 20 light-years away, the secret cache exploded. Weapons capable of destroying planets, viruses that could kill entire species, devices that could unravel reality itself, all of it gone in a flash of energy. The council station was safe. Everyone in it was alive, and the council's most dangerous secrets had been literally destroyed. Vexithera stared in disbelief. Impossible. You could not have. Sora smiled at him. You underestimated us. That was your biggest mistake, Deho added quietly. We did not come here to destroy the council. We came to save it from people like you. Thak stepped forward and placed restraints on Vexithara. The former High Counselor did not resist. He was defeated and he knew it. Take him to a holding cell, Thax ordered his guards. As Vexithara was led away, he looked back at Deho. I underestimated you, Vexithara said. That was my mistake. No, Deho replied. Your mistake was thinking that wisdom comes from age rather than adversity. Your mistake was believing that power means you are right. Your mistake was forgetting that systems built on exploitation always collapse eventually. The former High Counselor said nothing more as he was taken away. In the chamber, the remaining council members slowly returned. They looked at the humans with new eyes, fear, respect, understanding that everything had changed. The adjudicators spoke. The council is in crisis. Emergency protocols are now in effect. All members are confined to the station until a new government can be established. Humans have proven themselves worthy not just of membership but of leadership. What is your proposal for restructuring the council? Deho took a breath. This was the moment everything had been building toward. The moment when humanity would define the future of the galaxy. He began to speak, and the council listened. Deho stood in the center of the council chamber and spoke words that would reshape galactic civilization. The council was built on a beautiful idea, he began. A place where different species could meet as equals. Where knowledge would be shared. Where cooperation would replace conflict. Somewhere along the way, that idea was lost. Today we have a chance to remember it. 800 species representatives listened, some with hope, some with suspicion, all with complete attention. We propose 5 changes, Deho continued. First, equal voting rights for all species. No more subordinate classifications. No more senior species having more power. 1 species, 1 vote, murmurs spread through the chamber. Some elder species representatives looked angry, but many subordinate species representatives stood up and cheered. Second, abolish the tribute system. No species should be forced to give away their resources. Instead, we propose voluntary cooperation and fair trade agreements. More cheering. The tribute system had enslaved hundreds of species for thousands of years. Its end meant freedom. Third, complete transparency. All council decisions will be public. All financial records will be open. All laws will be accessible to everyone. No more secrets. No more hidden crimes. Several elder species representatives looked uncomfortable. Transparency meant accountability. It meant they could no longer hide their corruption. Fourth, return all stolen resources to their rightful owners. The 940 trillion credits that were embezzled will be traced and returned. Species that were sabotaged will receive reparations. Species that were exploited will be compensated. Now even some elder species representatives were nodding. Justice was being offered, not revenge. Fifth, establish war crimes tribunals. Those who committed crimes will face justice. But we will use the council's own laws to judge them. We will prove that the system can work when it is applied fairly. Deho paused, letting his words sink in. Then he added something unexpected. These changes will not be implemented by humans alone. We propose a rotating leadership council of 12 species. Every 5 years, the leadership rotates to different species. This ensures no single group can dominate. It ensures everyone has a voice. An elder counselor stood up. And what of humans? Will you not take power for yourselves? You have earned it through your victory. We do not want power, Deho said simply. We want justice. We want a system that works for everyone. If we take power now, we become the very thing we fought against. In 50 years, we might be the corrupt ones. In 100 years, some other species might need to fight to free the galaxy from us. Better to build a system that does not rely on any one species being virtuous. Silence filled the chamber. Then slowly, species representatives began to vote. Some voted yes immediately. Others took time to consider. But in the end, the result was clear. 783 votes in favor. 64 against. All 5 proposals passed. The council had been reformed. The age of exploitation was over. A new era had begun. 6 months later, the changes were complete. The new council met in a rebuilt chamber, one designed to remind everyone of the values they were supposed to uphold: transparency, equality, justice. Thax served as one of the 12 rotating leaders. His experience and integrity made him a natural choice. On his first day, he called a meeting with Captain Una. They met in a small office, not the grand chambers of the old council. Thax poured tea, a human custom he had learned to appreciate. "I need to ask you something," Thax said. "Why did you really help us? You could have conquered the galaxy. Your planning was perfect. Your technology was superior in the ways that mattered. You could have taken power." Una sipped her tea before answering. "Because conquest is easy. Building something that lasts is hard. Any species can dominate through force, but creating a system where everyone benefits, that requires real strength. In 40,000 years, you are the first species that fought not for dominance but for justice. Not for yourselves but for everyone. That is worth preserving," Thax said. Una smiled. "We learned something during our own history. On Earth, empires rose and fell. Nations conquered and were conquered. But the societies that lasted were the ones built on cooperation, not domination. We wanted to bring that lesson to the stars." Meanwhile, Sora and Professor G1 worked together on a new project. The universal translator G1 had created during the trials was being distributed freely to all species. For the first time in galactic history, everyone could communicate with everyone else. The results were extraordinary. Species that had been dismissed as primitive revealed sophisticated philosophies. Species that had been considered enemies discovered they had much in common. Cultural exchange flourished like never before. "Look at this," G1 said, showing Sora a report. "Technological advancement across the galaxy has increased by 300% in just 6 months. When species can actually talk to each other, share ideas freely, and cooperate without fear, progress accelerates dramatically." Sora nodded. "The old council held everyone back because they were afraid of competition. The new council is lifting everyone up. This is what cooperation looks like." Director Minho closed down the Legal Warfare Division. It was no longer needed, but he kept all the archives, all the evidence, all the documentation of how the operation had worked. "Just in case," he told his team. "Hopefully we will never need this again. But if corruption ever returns, if exploitation ever resurfaces, future generations will know how to fight it." The files were sealed and stored in a secure location, with copies distributed to trusted representatives across the galaxy, a safeguard against future tyranny. On Earth, celebrations continued for weeks. Humanity had gone to the stars and changed the galaxy, not through conquest but through courage, not through weapons but through wisdom. Messages came from hundreds of species. "Thank you. We are free because of you. You showed us it was possible to stand up to injustice. You reminded us that the system could be changed." But the best message came from the 3 species that Nari had helped make peace during the trials. They sent a gift, a crystal sculpture showing 3 figures standing together, hands joined. Beneath it, an inscription in 3 languages and in human English: "To the species that taught us to look beyond our differences." Deho returned to Earth after the reforms were complete. He could have stayed on the council station, could have become a powerful leader, could have basked in glory. Instead, he went home. He lived in a small apartment in Seoul, the city where he had been born, where he had learned to think strategically, where he had planned the revolution that changed the galaxy. One evening, his daughter Hana came to visit. She was 8 years old now, with her father's calm demeanor and her mother's sharp eyes. They sat on the balcony watching the sunset. Hana asked, "Dad, did you really save the galaxy?" Deho thought about how to answer. Finally, he said, "No, sweetheart. We just reminded them how to save themselves." "What's the difference? When you save someone, they depend on you. When you teach someone to save themselves, they become strong. We didn't want the galaxy to depend on humans. We wanted every species to be strong enough to stand up for themselves." Hana considered this. "What happens now?" Now comes the hard part. Building something new is exciting. Maintaining it is difficult. Making sure it keeps working fairly. Making sure corruption does not return. Making sure the lessons we learned are not forgotten. That will take generations. Will you help? Deho smiled and put his arm around his daughter. I'll advise when asked. But the future belongs to your generation now. We did our part. Now you will do yours. They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the evening sky. Above them, ships from 100 worlds traveled freely, no longer subordinates or masters, but partners in the great adventure of galactic civilization. A message alert chimed on Deho's communicator. It was from Sora. The Council just passed its first major collaborative project. 300 species working together to build a network of research stations. No single species in charge. Everyone contributing equally. Everyone benefiting equally. It is beautiful. Deho sent back a simple reply. This is just the beginning, and it was. Across the galaxy, species that had never cooperated before were working together. Technologies were being shared freely. Scientific discoveries were accelerating. Art, music, and culture were spreading between worlds. The Council had existed for 40,000 years as a tool of control. Now it was becoming what it should have been from the start, a true community of equals. Problems remained, of course. Old prejudices did not disappear overnight. Species that had been enemies for millennia did not become friends immediately. There were disputes, disagreements, and difficulties. But now there was a fair system to resolve those problems. There were laws that applied to everyone equally. There was transparency that prevented corruption. There was hope that things could continue to improve. Years later, historians would study what happened and try to understand it. How had one primitive species changed a system that had existed for 40,000 years? How had they defeated technology far more advanced than their own? How had they won without violence? The answer was simple but profound. Humans had succeeded because they understood something the old council had forgotten.